Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of our conversations with filmmakers taking part in the OurPride.org Film Festival. We now are being joined by a filmmaker whose film you may have seen, may not have seen, but you have to see. It's called He Won't Be Long, and we are joined by filmmaker Dominic Mercurio. Dominic, welcome to the conversation.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate being here.
So as I've already told you, folks, you weren't part of the conversation earlier, but I'm familiar with the actor that's in your short film, He Won't Be Long. And I'm sure a lot of folks who watch this will also be familiar with him, Cole Doman. But before we get into too much of the actual story, I'm going to pass it to you to kind of give us a little snapshot of who you are as a filmmaker and how long you've been doing this. And yeah, who's Dominic?
Yeah, so I've been making films since I was 13, 12 or 13, something like that. And that's just, I think, simply because that's when I had access to my family's camera. I probably would have been like fooling around with it even before then if I could have been given the opportunity. But I have always been in love with filmmaking, films first, but then realizing that, oh, wait, like I could actually create these things that I'm watching and I love so much. And so I went to film school in San Francisco, where I currently still live. And after film school, I think is really when I started to make work that I'm a little more, proud of in a certain kind of way. And actually like getting it out there, having people see it. And yeah, so that I think after that, after film school, I primarily was doing a lot of music videos, which is I think probably how most people knew me before this film. I would do music videos for my own band, Foxtails Brigade, and then that kind of snowballed into other bands in the Bay Area who would see those, and then they would reach out to me, ask if I'd be interested in making a music video, and if I dug the track, off we went, and I made kind of a string of music videos over the course of maybe I don't know, six or 7 years or so, that were just an absolute blast. And it was kind of a little eye-opening to just see the kind of creative stuff you could do in music videos, where it's like it doesn't really need to be tied so much to this like full narrative. You can kind of just get experimental and just try something out. Because I feel like when you kind of are getting experimental in a longer form thing, you really have to find the ways to continue to make it engaging. But when you're just dealing with 3 to 4 minutes, like it's kind of just no holds barred, which I loved. But anyways, that brings us to this film, He Won't Belong, which is something that I've been working on for quite some time, and is sort of my first narrative film that I'm putting out into festivals. I've technically made some narrative stuff before, but this is kind of like the first one that I'm putting out into the world in a with like some real uh, weight behind it.
Well, if for a first, and you use the word weight there, which is a really good word to use because there's some weight to it. This is not a folks. This film, there's a lot that's happening in it, and it is only I think it's about 25 minutes, and in 25 minutes there is a whole journey, and there's some heaviness that's in there, and some really introspective things, and some incredible performances from all three of the actors who are in the short film. But I'm going to let you kind of tell us a little bit about it, where the story came from, what's kind of happening in there, and the behind the scenes bit of He Won't Be Long.
Yeah, there's so many places to start with this, but I think He Won't Belong um, started as well. I knew I wanted to tell a story about queer people. I wanted to um, feature two. I mean, I guess two came later, but I wanted to feature queer characters in a way that I feel like I had seen less, which is, like somewhat. I feel like there have been a lot of films in which I see queer characters kind of get fairly stereotypical roles, or don't really get like these deeper looks into their psyche necessarily. It's a little more surface level. And of course, I think that's changing now, and I want to contribute to that change, which is that, I think queer stories can be more than just kind of certain structures that we see a lot, like the coming out story, for example. I really wanted to challenge myself to write a story of just like, or even I should say, coming out, or also like even like a love story, which I love those. I'm not even saying that I don't love them, but I also think that there's so many stories that we as queer people experience in our lives. I mean, it's just as a wide of breadth of stories as straight people or anyone. And I feel like queer cinema should be exploring that full spectrum. So I think that's like the nugget of the idea, was just how can I write a story that speaks to other parts of myself that I see less represented. You brought up some of the heaviness, but I have anxiety and panic attacks, and I wanted to incorporate that into the story, find a way to talk about that kind of stuff. Also, like explore queer companionship or like friendship in a way that I feel is also fairly underrepresented. Like what it's, I mean, outside of romance, what can another, queer person in your life help you with? And what can you help them with? And kind of that beautiful synergy of, I think, when you understand that you're in like a space with someone who, immediately understands you, and potentially some of the things and the hardships that you may have gone through. Like, I think, when you meet someone who is queer, you have just immediately right out the gate, there's like uh an understanding between you. Um, and yeah, so there was that aspect. And then I think on a more surface level too, I really wanted to shoot in Sea Ranch, which the film is shot in. It's about 2 hours north of San Francisco, where I live. Um, and it's just a stunning area of California that I have never seen on film. And I'm in a band, which I think I mentioned before, and we would sometimes go up there to that specific house too, because it's owned by my bandmate's family. We would go up to that house to rehearse, or also just to relax, and or have a creative space. And every time I was there, I just felt like there has to be a story here. Like this house to me has such a vibe, and I wanted to match the vibe that the house was giving me in whatever story I was writing. Like, it kind of was pretty early on. I was like, okay, I want to write something that takes place in this specific house in this area of California. So what are some of the things that this house is giving me, like desolation and isolation, and like this kind of foggy atmosphere, and these sort of things that, like, I wanted to then write a story that would fit like like a key into a lock of like, oh, this is the story that would be here. It took a long time, of course, but eventually I think, like, I landed on these two characters, specifically one who lives in that house and one who kind of stumbles into the house in a kind of way. But yeah,
I think
I guess that's a good starting point.
that is a really great starting point. And I'm going to start somewhere that people may not expect me to. I'm going to talk about what you were just talking about, Sea Ranch, because
Hmm.
one of the things, I mean, if you're a lover of cinematography and you're a lover of landscape and you're a lover of the background, almost character, the forest area that they are in, that they go for a walk in. Um, I immediately was like, I need to go there. I need to be in that space. It is gorgeous, and it just feels almost like a kingdom of forest. It is unbelievable that you'd have that in this, and it sets that
Mhm.
space for that conversation so well between the two characters. So
Mhm.
it's Cole Doman, and then we have Joel Candio, and then the boyfriend that isn't necessarily the two that are in the space, but comes through in different ways, is Stephen James.
Mhm.
And
Sorry, seven James.
Seven James.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um it so the space of the
Mhm.
forest, unbelievable, beautiful. But going back to something else that you also mentioned about the companionship. So as queer people, I feel like we've been almost conditioned to believe and expect that there's two males on the screen. There is some kind of tension between the two of them. This is going to lead to love. This is going to lead to some kind of a, an experience between the two of them. And the tension is there, but it's not because you've put it in there. I think it's because we as viewers are so used to that being the mechanism within queer film that we expect it. But what we get instead is this experience of somebody who's, struggling with a number of different things, the panic
Mhm.
attack, and how you've kind of shown that in that one scene with, and not to give too much away, but between Cole and Seven, and
Mhm.
one is nude, one is not, folks.
Mhm.
Hold on. And then you again, I think, as viewers, think it's going to go in a specific direction, and it doesn't.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
start to get that sense of this is what this person is going through, and it's unfolding in front of you, and you're not sure why at first, and then it starts to kind of click in, and it's very, very, very clever. And when I said that, there's weight to it, it's because, again, I think we're conditioned to think that there's going to be one avenue that it's going to go down, and you
Mhm.
totally took it somewhere else. And
Mhm.
that is a good thing.
Mhm.
Going into this, I'm sure you must have thought about things like that, how people are going to perceive things, and making sure that you stayed on your track.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought all that up. I mean, it certainly was both a challenge to myself in a way to write a story about two gay men who are the leads in a gay film where their love or their attraction to one another is completely out of the equation. Um, Knowing that even myself, it's not like I'm saying like, oh, I'm above this. Um, it's just what we think. Like, yeah, you just kind of assume like, oh, they're probably going to get together. Like, sure, they will. But it wasn't so much that I just wanted to like, oh, defy that for just defiance sake. It was more like, I don't want to give you that, but I want to give you something that I hope is equally fulfilling by the end of the film. Like when you get to the end, that you would feel like actually that was equally satisfying to me, like how their relationship dynamic shifts and changes, even if it doesn't go towards love, like what does it go towards? And can that be equally valid and deep? And I that's sort of what I want to leave people with is like there are many forms of ways that queer people can be interacting. So that's kind of that on that. But yes, like I think defining expectations, I think that's just like worked into how I kind of view art and cinema in general. Like it's hard for me to not want to bump up against expectations and be like, oh, you think I'm going to do that? Let's do this. Like I just inherently do like doing that, but I also want it to be for like a reason, of course. Like I want there to be a point to it, not just like let's just go crazy. But definitely audience expectations and my own expectations, even while writing it and trying to like not go to places that I felt like could be maybe the easy thing to go to were constantly in my head. Um, but yeah, it felt like a challenge to myself. Like, let's make something equally satisfying. Like, what could happen that still I hope would connect with people. Um, and oh, and then you talk. I mean, this is a little off, but you talked about the forest too, which I love that you said that it felt like it really fit that moment because I do think that part of the film, and again, I won't get too much into like the plot in case people haven't seen it before they hear this, but you know, Cole's character Connor is coming into a situation that he is extremely guarded about and is, I think, not even seeing what's around him. He's just sort of like so in his own head that what people are saying to him and what is physically around him is like barely even a factor. And I wanted that scene to kind of be maybe the first time that you're starting to get this idea that oh, this is like so overwhelmingly gorgeous around him that he's like starting to not be able to, like, he can't not notice anymore. Like it's because in that moment you do get this brief moment where, the dialogue kind of goes away and you just hear him like take in the forest for a second. And that is a turning point. Like that to me is a plot point of like, okay, he's actually starting to pay attention a little more because he really should be paying attention to what's going on around him because this other guy he's with is like maybe could help him in a certain way.
It's interesting because in the actual, setup of it, you have like I said, a gorgeous forest. But these two characters, both on the screen, but very far apart in terms of distance, physically. But then what you have is they're surrounded by these giant pillar trees and this open space. And it's very courtyard kind of feeling. And it's an incredible setting. So like finding that is just a gem itself.
Mm.
Um, you've got three actors that are in this, and I've mentioned Cole, and for those of you who are out there who are watching, you probably know him maybe from Henry Gamble's Birthday Party, which is where probably most of us have first saw him. What were the challenges of bringing this together? Because you've got it's a small cast, but still a big feeling production, in my opinion. And what were those challenges for you, kind of knitting all of this together?
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, Cole, I also found out about him through watching Henry Gamble's Birthday Party. At one point it was on Netflix. I think it's maybe no longer there, but you can still find it, to rent on many other platforms. But yeah, I saw him in that movie around the time that I was writing this film and just felt like I loved the subtlety in which he portrayed a gay young character in that film. I felt like there were layers to his performance. Like it's not just about what he's saying; it's about what you see on his face and like what you can surmise that he's thinking at any given point. And that is like the key, I think, to who I was going to cast as Connor in this film because he doesn't really say a lot with words as to what he's feeling. It's about, I mean, and oftentimes he's saying the opposite of, I think, what he's actually thinking. So I needed an actor who could say these words and maybe you hear him say something that's like kind of annoying, even like, why would he say that to this person? But it's like I hope that you would understand too that it's like maybe he's saying that, but he doesn't. He's just lost, and like he's on guard. Like there's a lot more going on, and like why would he be saying these sorts of things? Uh, anyways, so I reached out to him. I sent him the script, and uh, he uh, he kind of came on board first, which was so exciting to me because I was like nervous to work with him. I was like, I mean, insane, but like, you're perfect. So let's do this. Um, and then yeah, shortly thereafter, the other two, or it actually took a while to find the other two, but they were again both of them perfect for their roles. Joel as Theo and Seven as the unnamed boyfriend character. They just both having conversations with them um, made me realize that they were bringing uh, a personal something to these roles that I really appreciated them like sharing with me and us having these like long conversations about what's going on here, like what's up with these characters, why are they like this, like let's get into the psychology of it. And I felt like they both just made me feel very reassured that they'd be bringing the heat, as they say. They don't say that, people don't say that, but um yeah, I don't know if that really answered your question though.
You know what? It was a great answer because it filled in a lot of things that, as a filmmaker, and I think that sometimes folks out there may get the misconception that a short film is so much more easy to be able to produce and do than a longer feature film. I think they all come with their own challenges, and what you're doing is you're giving a storyline that is really usually over the course of an hour and a half, 2 hours. These days, who knows, could be three. And you're condensing it down, you're bringing it down to its most vital parts of the story into that 25 minutes. And with, very capable actors and the setup, I think that sometimes people don't realize that is a challenge all on its own, to be able to, not overdo, but also make sure that you have those right pieces that are in there, which I believe that in this case that you have done very, very well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you're saying that too, because I'm very proud of this film for doing that, and that was the intention, was to, I mean, essentially there is kind of like three acts, very quick acts, but it fit. Like, I watch a lot of feature films. I mostly am consuming feature films. When I was writing this, I just feel like maybe some of the themes could be themes that I could have stretched out for a feature film. But I was like, what if we just try and like find a way to make this happen in a much shorter amount of time? Maybe we cut this, cut that, but like, we can hopefully get some like full character arcs going. And I feel like that's been very on my mind lately, just because I do feel like, even though I'm very proud of this film, it's been hard to get out there, I think, in festivals because it's a slightly longer film. And, I think there is also a lot of merit to short films that can just kind of like find a vibe. And maybe it's not this full story, but just like you just find this vibe and you just dig deep into it. And maybe, oh, it doesn't have this like ending where everything gets wrapped up or whatever, but you just feel satisfied simply by just like watching a even more contained thing. And that's kind of like been more where my head's at now, with like, okay, if I write this short film, I should think about it more as like, okay, this is a vibe. It just is like, it's a little nugget, like just a little poof. But then if I'm going to write a feature, that's where I should maybe explore these themes next again. And so I'm like simultaneously writing both right now, because I'm like, again, I feel myself like, it's hard because I think my instincts are this, which is like a 20 to 30 minute story that kind of deals with larger themes. So I'm like pulling myself in opposite directions as my new challenge, in a way, to be like, all right, if I want this to be included, it's got to be the feature. But if I am okay with it not being included, then it should be a short. So I don't know. This does exist in that kind of middle ground. Yeah.
Listen, the short story exists for a reason, right? And I will say that what you've done, and I think it's a testament to kind of like how you've put this together, is that you get to the end of this and you're invested. And it's 25 minutes, and you are invested in the future of both of those characters who are on screen. Not that we're not invested in the seven character, but
Mhm.
the two primary characters, you're invested of them. You want Connor to do well. You want him to be
Mhm.
happy. But you're also really interested. I will say you're also interested in the other character, to know where they're headed and what their
Mhm.
story is, because you get the fleetingest amount of backstory of
Mhm.
that character, but it's enough to kind of make you go, and just the interaction as well gives
Mhm.
you a sense of who that character is, what they've experienced, and you kind of want to know that they're going to do well, as what their next journey, their next steps are going to be. So I think that in a short period of time, to have that kind of investment coming at the end of it says a lot
Mhm.
about how this whole story has unraveled, to leave you
Mhm.
essentially wanting more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they both are offering are offering something the other character kind of needs. It's a bit of a yin and yang kind of thing. Hold on, water. But yeah, I think Theo uh, needs I think he needs to find a way to move forward. Whereas, like, because he's kind of in this stuck spot, like he is in one kind of stage of grief, and he's struggling to get out of it. And I think Connor is sort of in another state of not necessarily grief, but like uh, um, anxiety and internal turmoil with his relationship. Like they both are in very different spots in their relationships, you could say. And I think they have a lot to learn from each other. And that was also very much a part of the design of the story, is like, what could each of these characters kind of gain from the other? And I think by the end, it's like, I think they've been able to exchange some pieces of advice, even though it's more overt. I think with Connor, like Connor more overtly, I think gets advice in a way. I also think though that Theo's life is kind of changed by this interaction with Connor over the course of 48-ish hours. That I think he could see another way to move forward by how Connor is able to move forward. Maybe it's a haphazard amount, but if you were to reel that back in, Theo could also find a lot to learn from Connor in just like finding ways to move forward. I think they're both trying to find ways to move forward, but they're on like opposite ends of the spectrum of how they're handling it. One is just literally stationary. One is like, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna escape. But neither of them really should be doing that.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and I think that a lot of times we go into films like this, and we don't expect to leave with as much as we do. And I that's about crafting a great film and a great short film, and which is what I think that you've done. Folks, you've heard all about it, but you do need to see it. But I have to ask, it's here at the festival. I know that you said that you've been, it's challenging to kind of get it out there into other places. Do you have other spots lined up for it? Is it coming out in other different locations?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the tail end of festivals that it'll be shown at. Um, uh, and you can also find it online. Um, so it's out there. And I think at this point, like we just want people to be able to see the film in whatever way. Like I obviously prefer a theater situation, but like I think we're now in a new phase of just like we just want people to see it no matter how they're going to see it. Um, so yeah, I think if you want to see it, it's out there.
Well, okay, folks, you do know the name of the short film is He Won't Be Long. It is playing during this festival. You've heard all about it. As I said, you now need to go and check it out because it is worth the time to sit down and watch it. And 25 minutes, folks, is not a lot to invest. Come on, you can do that. So,
Yeah,
Dominic,
and plus it's technically 22, so it's like, you can watch this movie and then throw on your favorite track, and then that's 25 minutes.
there you go. There you go. I guess I say 25 because for me to start up right straight through, it's
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
25. But 22, you are correct. Dominic, I want to thank you for joining me and telling us all about it. And I wish you all the luck with it. And I can't wait to see kind of what comes next in terms of your own journey as a filmmaker.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's always exciting to get to take a chance to actually talk about the work. I mean, we put a lot of work into making it, and I feel like this is the part that sometimes gets a little thrown aside or something. So it's always really exciting to get to just talk about what's been going on in my head for years with making this. So thank you.